to the rigors of the SEC Western Division for the Hogs at home against Mississippi State. We got Ty Hudson on the line from Pig Trail Network to help us break it down as he always does. Hey, Ty, what's going on?
Yo, Mark, how you doing, man?
I'm good. Good to see you.
Likewise.
So Arkansas Pine Bluff, well, that at least gave this team a break, a breather from that gauntlet that they dive back into. And Mississippi State, they're in the rankings after some impressive performances out of them. So what's the latest on the Hogs?
Well, we'll start with, I guess, recruiting, which was huge last night for Hog fans. They gained a huge commitment out of a hometown hero right down the road in Fayetteville, right? Literally, for people who don't know, the high school, Fayetteville High, which used to be known as East Campus, is adjacent to the University of Arkansas. And they've done a pretty good job of cleaning up, going after kids and bringing them to from Fayetteville High to the University of Arkansas, right next door. They've done a pretty good job of doing that for the longest time. Centegna this is his third different place to commit. So he's now decommitted from Oregon, and he has flipped to the Arkansas Razorbacks, 4-star wide receiver, number one player in the state of Arkansas. And I know I'm not going to mention names, but there are some people that I know, some fellow independent media people who said that, well, they thought another player in the state was better than Centegna. He's overrated, this, that, and the other. I think anyone who's had eyes on him and had an opportunity to watch him play in person, who have also at least watched a little bit of another guy they like to compare him to, maybe Quincy McAdoo, another 4-star wide receiver who's also highly recruited. When you compare the two, it's almost like Centegna is just on another level right now. He's a top 25 receiver on 247, nationally ranked 133rd in the country, and again, number one player in the state of Arkansas. It's always hard to compare side by side. It is, but they play in the 7A West, which is one of the more competitive divisions in the state of Arkansas, and he shows out. I think he leads the state, or at least 7A football, and I believe receiving yards. He has a lot of highlight material out there. He could, for the Hogs, assuming he signs and assuming they can get him to sign in December, which would be preferable. You're talking about a kid who could maybe help you out in special teams on punt and kick return, and who right out the gate could be someone that could compete to roll with the 1s and 2s next year. I think he's definitely in that category. And I think the same of Quincy McAdoo. Again, another 4-star, a little bit taller receiver, 6'3" guy, pretty long frame, long limbs, pretty good sized hands. Not Treylon Burks sized hands, mind you, by the way, the freak of nature that's currently with the Razorbacks, possible All-American and first-round draft pick, Treylon Burks. But so you've got McAdoo coming in and Centegna, two big-time commits for the Arkansas Razorbacks. It's a step in the right direction when you talk about recruiting. I still think they're, I like the linebacker class they've put together so far. They're all three of their linebackers that are currently committed are midterm guys. They all should be here in spring. I think that's a position of need. I think defensive line is still a position of need. But it's nice that Arkansas, even with all these questions with Kendall Briles, it's nice to see that they're able to restock at that position, at the wideout position, because that has been an area they've recruited pretty well in the last 3 or 4 classes.
Oh, man, I was hustling to try to pull up his stats. Max.
Yeah, there was someone on
I'm
Twitter.
at it. Yeah. There we go. Okay, we can pick it up from there. Yeah, if you look at 247 Sports, obviously he is a track standout, as you say, 100 meters, long jump, high jump. Got the numbers here. Max preps, 1,260 yards, 20 yards per reception. So, yeah, he can do it. He can pick him up and lay him down, and he is an athlete, no question.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. Ty Hudson on the line, Pig Trail Network, breaking down the Hogs, taking on Mississippi State this week. And with the number one recruit in the state in the fold, Hogs fans feeling good despite a bit of a slump here in recent weeks. Arkansas Pine Bluff aside, got to say, Ty, that Arkansas took college football by storm in September and have been kind of off the map here. And now is time for that 4-game stretch drive in the SEC Western Division. So what's it going to take against Mississippi State?
Well, so getting healthy, first off, which they're going to get Dalton Wagner back at right tackle, which is huge. They've had Ty Clary, who's kind of the Swiss Army knife of offensive linemen. That guy can play 4 of the 5 positions on the offensive line. Not so much left tackle, but he can play left guard, center, guard, right tackle, which is what he did. But he's not on the same level as Dalton Wagner in terms of a pure right tackle. And so, yeah, they're going to get Wagner back. They're going to get Utzi back on the defensive line. Health is a big deal. Now, unfortunately, Catalon, who is an All-American, who's probably the best safety in college football, and I think up until his productivity started to decline, and once we realized, okay, he did something with his hand and now his shoulder, and I think they're going to go in and he's had some surgery, I believe, to correct the shoulder, and that's why he's out for the rest of the year. I could be mistaken. I think it's his shoulder that they either are doing surgery on or they already have, but you don't have him back there. That's a problem. Cover guy, he's pretty solid as a cover guy. We know what he can do in terms of playing inside the box if he has to. Really good solo tackler, one of the best. Just, you talk about a pure tackler as a safety with someone who's not 6'2", 6'3", 215 or 210 like some of these other SEC safeties. He's a little bit smaller frame, and yet he plays like he's 6'4", 250. I mean, he just lays the boom, forces fumbles. He can pick you off. He's a takeaway machine, and we noticed his productivity after the A&M game. It just completely declined. And since then, they've had a bit of a hole there, and finally he's out for the rest of the year, right? They haven't had him now for a couple of weeks, and you're not going to get any better there, but they're going to rotate in, and as they have the last couple of games, Miles Slusher, who's a former 4-star, highly recruited player out of high school, big-time guy. A lot of big schools wanted him. He chose the Hogs. Came in last year as a freshman. Out the gate, I think he had at least a fumble recovery against Georgia and a couple other tackles. I think he had another interception this year, or at least one interception so far this year. And he's a good solo tackler too, and he's not afraid to jump in and gang tackle. He's one of those guys that can come in like a heat-seeking missile. His issue has been covering the back end of the defense. He's been beat week in and week out now on these deep routes, whether it's the slot fade route or whatever. If he's there covering man, or if he's over the top in zone, he's not the most reliable. And I think that's an area where he could probably use some help in. Part of that, I know people, and I've seen this on my show and a lot of people in the comment section, he's overrated, He's been hurt, Mark. Slusher has been banged up. He's been banged up for most of this season. In fact, I think he didn't participate a whole lot during fall camp. They've moved him around. They've had him playing multiple corner spots, the nickel spot, both safety spots. And I've said this since I heard that, they need to nail him down at that one position behind Catalon, or behind Jalen Catalon, and get him going there. That's his natural position, and I think he's going to get better. If Catalon does bolt for the pros, he's a redshirt sophomore. He is eligible for the pros. He is eligible for the draft. If he does bolt, I'm not panicking like some people are. I think Slusher can develop at that position, but right now where they're at, that's a black eye on that defense. They've also had the injury issue with Ladarius Bishop at the other corner spot, which is why we're seeing Hudson Clark, that tall 6'3", 195-pound corner, not so trustworthy, downfield. He's another guy that can get beat. But Mississippi State, watching them play as much as I have this year, solid against the run. There's no doubt they're one of the best run defenses, not only in the SEC West, but in all the SEC and in all the land. I think they're top 6, top 5 against the run. And we know on offense, they don't stretch you out. They don't throw deep all the time. They like these underneath check down routes. They like these hitch and a lot of screen plays, hitch routes and screen plays. That's what they do. They don't run the ball traditionally. They really run the ball by throwing it, which is kind of weird to say. They like these, what do you call it? Dink and dive or whatever, where they're nickel and diming you down.
Dink and dunk.
Dink and dunk. That's it. Thank you, Mark, for bailing me out. That's what they do. They hit you on these short and intermediate routes. They don't really go. It's not that they won't. It's not that Will Rogers can't. And maybe they do against Arkansas, because that has, again, been an issue every week. They've been beat deep. Hell, even when Catalan was healthy, they got beat once or twice downfield. But if they're healthy, if they lick their wounds, if they keep everything in front of them, and something else Mississippi State does really well too, by the way, I think they're like top 5 in the country in yards after catch, which is something they're going to have to consider. But as long as they keep everything in front of them on defense, they haven't played, them being Mississippi State, or they being Mississippi State, rather, they haven't played an offense like this. This is a power run offense that just spreads you out. It's the veer and shoot with a 240-pound quarterback, and they're going to start Dominic freaking Johnson finally this week. Hawk fans have been begging for this cat. He's getting 3-4 carries a game, but he's getting these 15, 20-yard runs downfield. Mark, I don't know what the deal is. Give this guy the ball at least a minimum of 13, 15 times a game, if not more. And now it sounds like Sammy Pitty, he's going to do it. He's going to hand Dom John the rock, and I'm excited to see what he can do, because he's a physical back too. He's a pretty big dude, so they're going to be throwing close to, over 400 pounds of KJ and Dom John at the Mississippi State front, and see what they can do as far as handling it. And I'm going to go too, and I'm kind of blown up on my Friday show with this, or I'm going to be. But Arkansas also, they've done pretty good at protecting KJ and giving him lanes to run through when he decides to keep it. If he's patient, Mississippi State isn't exactly great at hurrying the quarterback every play. Not that they're not capable of doing it. If he's patient, he could pick Mississippi State apart. I feel like he's that capable of a quarterback. He's a dual threat. He's a true RPO quarterback. And Mississippi State's about to take on something they haven't seen yet this year. Arkansas really is. I mean, they're top 8, top 6 rush offense in the country, and there's a reason for that, and it has mostly to do with KJ. But then it's this plethora of running backs, right? Dom John. Traylon Smith has been good. Let's not act like he hasn't. He's just not been as consistent, and he's a smaller back. They have Raheem Sanders, who's another bigger, more physical back. A.J. Green, who you and I have talked about before, big-time track guy, 4-star athlete out of Oklahoma, who can bust it loose. He's got a lot of work to do in the pass protection department. But, yeah, this could be an interesting matchup. It is going to be an interesting matchup, and it is another coin flipper. So, I've already filled out my Mark Rogers official pick list this week. I don't know if you've seen it yet or not. I've picked my winner in this game, but I'm going to wait to share that for Friday's show. I don't know when you release this, but I'm really looking forward to the Friday show and breaking it down like I have here. But obviously we'll have more time on the Friday show to do it. But really excited about this matchup, Mark. This is the game where you prove everybody wrong, that Arkansas is not a team and team to remember in the month of November. You could change a lot of headlines if you can. And it starts this week, and then you get ready for LSU, Bama, and Mizzou. And it starts against Mississippi State.
So many tidbits to hit on based on what you just stated. I'll go with this. Flipping the field back to the Mississippi State offense, Arkansas defensive matchup. Everything that you just outlined concerning the Mike Leach offense, Will Rogers' abilities, run after the catch is one of the reasons why Mississippi State was able to set an SEC completion percentage record against a good defense, a top 15 to 20 defense in the country in Kentucky, by hitting 36 of 39 passes in that game.
Incredible.
And also on the flip side, holding down, as you mentioned, the rush defense, Chris Rodriguez, one of the best backs in the SEC, and Will Levis, a mobile quarterback, to next to nothing in the run game. And speaking of picks, man, you just reminded me, 13-5 against the spread last week, 107-69 against the spread this season. So join us on Patreon at Mark Rogers TV. So just search Mark Rogers TV. You get my picks. So the deal is that you get Ty's picks on a 12-pack. So we got 20 media members that select on a 12-pack that I select the 12-pack of games, and then I select all the top 25 games. That's why we've got typically 18 to 22 picks from me per week. Again, 13-5 against the spread. I got to talk that up, Ty, because that doesn't happen every week. So again, 107-69 against the spread for the season. You'll win some change with that.
Ignore my picks because I've missed don't ignore my picks, but I missed 2 weeks this year. I've missed 2 weeks, and it's really cost me. And then you add in I've had one really bad week, in college football this year, I still feel like it's predictable, but it's also predictable at being very unpredictable. So it's been a bit of a struggle for me this year, but this is the first year I've actually participated in a pick list like this. Of course, I used to do the little independent ones on whatever website, but I'm not doing so well. I feel pretty good, but there's some tough matchups this weekend. And I think this Arkansas-Mississippi State game might be one of the toughest, with the advantage going to, I think, Arkansas because they're at home, and Fayetteville does typically draw pretty well. And since that north end zone, we're finally getting to hear that north end zone. It's getting louder in Fayetteville. And Fayetteville has a reputation for being pretty freaking loud. There's been 2 former Alabama quarterbacks who've said the same thing, that Fayetteville is one of the toughest places they've ever played at. So consider that. I'm just saying, consider that when if you're gambling on this game, just know that it's a tough place to play. But then again, Auburn went into Fayetteville and beat them. But I would argue that Auburn pretty good on the road. They should have beat Penn State several weeks back, and I feel like Auburn's a better team. Even now, I think they're a better team than Penn State. They should have won that game. Horrible officiating, Mark. Horrible officiating. But not that Penn State isn't a good team. Penn State's a solid team. So is Auburn. But Auburn did walk into Fayetteville, and they got a dub. We'll see if Mississippi State can do it. But, well, again, I'll touch on that on Friday, or you can look at my picks on Mark Rogers on checking it out through there. But, yeah, it's going to be this is, again, one of the most difficult games I've had to pick this year. And I feel like I say that every week, but this one is really tough to pick between Arkansas and Mississippi State.
Yeah, while you're checking us out on Patreon, Pig Trail Network on Patreon as well. With
right.
The Arkansas take from Ty Hudson. So much more to ask you, Ty, but I got to run. I would love to pin you down on a few other things, but they're more season topic conversations, so they can wait for another week. Ty, we appreciate you stopping by and being here.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on, Mark.